But if you're asking the wrong questions of the nonprofit, and the nonprofit's having to jump through these hoops and answer these questions, and you just don't feel like you're meeting each other, you're actually connecting, then there's something wrong with that. It should feel a little bit more, these are the right questions to ask a nonprofit. The nonprofit then is obligated to answer those questions, both qualitative and quantitative. And now we have a really good picture on what's happening. And if we can do that across thousands, if not millions of nonprofits, what could be better than that?
Welcome to Be Bold Branding, where we discuss the power of differentiating yourself through your own unique story and standout personal brand.
How do you bridge the gap between generous hearts and effective giving? Today, we're exploring strategic philanthropy with Rick Peck, founder of the Philanthropy Guy and CEO of GiveTrust, who's dedicated his career to transforming how donors, nonprofits, and advisors approach charitable giving. Rick helps nonprofits represent their best selves while guiding donors toward meaningful, effective giving. His mission extends beyond traditional fundraising to creating transparency, trust, and ease in the philanthropic process. Join us as we explore how this thought leader is transforming philanthropy from emotional impulse into strategic impact.
Rick, welcome to Big Bold Branding.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Hey, before we get into exactly what it is that you do, because that's really important to us, we got a lot of good questions for you. You want to give us a little idea of your background and what led you to focus on this at this portion of your life?
Yeah, well, I would say I started as a financial advisor. And I did that for 7 years, where I was working with people in retirement planning, just working personally with a couple or an individual. How do you get to retirement? How do you educate your kids? How do you have enough insurance on yourself? What are you thinking as far as tax reduction and so on? And that was very valuable. I ended up getting a lot of excellent technical experience there and a lot of good experience in working with individuals. But around 2005, my wife was working at Dartmouth College, and she said, "Hey, Rick, is there anything over at Dartmouth that you think would be interesting to you?" And I said, "I don't know. I'm a financial advisor. I don't think there's anything here." But we did find something called Associate Director of Gift Planning. And it was working with people who went around the country and talked to people about bequest intentions, or maybe complicated asset donations, or maybe charitable gift annuities and charitable remainder trusts. So things I hadn't done a lot of work with, but it was interesting because it had to do with estate planning. It had to do with charitable giving. And I thought, maybe I do have the skill set to be able to migrate over to this new role. And so I did. And I never really looked back. So now I've been doing it for about 20 years in the world. Literally, as of September 1st, I've been doing charitable giving for that long. And I started in academia with Dartmouth College. I stayed in planned giving for a while, but then I started to move into the medical school at Dartmouth. Then I started to move into the hospital that was associated with Dartmouth. And then I started to move into what are called major gifts, which were outright gifts of $50,000 or more to either the medical school or the hospital. Then I worked in principal giving, which was $1 million or more to the medical school or the hospital. And all the while I held on to planned giving. I had a whole team reporting to me. And then I eventually left there to pursue something called VP for Development at the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation. And so I did that for about 6 years right after Dartmouth. Then I was working with people who are not just interested in academia or healthcare, but they were interested in anything. Could be the environment, could be homelessness, could be food scarcity, whatever the case may be. I would just meet them where they were and then talk with them about what types of assets they wanted to donate and work with their professional advisors to help facilitate the gift. So about 2.5 years ago, then I started as a consultant, as an independent consultant, just working with either nonprofits or donors or professional advisors to help facilitate the conversation. So I feel very fortunate that I've had a really solid career, a really strong background in finance and philanthropy. And I feel like I've seen a lot, and yet I'm still learning a lot. I'm still learning a lot about what's out there and how to help people.
Wow. Well, that's a heck of a resume in that, because it may be that a lot of people do that particular work, but I've just never heard of it. Right. But I would almost think like it's pretty specialized, what you're doing here.
It is specialized. I mean, some would say it's a cottage industry where it's still emerging. sadly, there's $592 billion that was donated last year. So it's kind of sad to think that we're still a cottage industry when we should
Right.
have arguably a philanthropic advisor in every street corner to say, hey, if you are giving a small amount of money or a large amount of money, you know where to find us. We can help you with whatever it is that you need to help you reach your goals. So, but yeah, it is hard to find. We're trying to, in my world, we're trying to make it so that it's more obvious on how to find people and how to credential them in such a way that people say, well, I know how to find a philanthropic advisor as easily as I could find a CFP or a financial advisor or a trust and estates attorney, but it is a little bit more mysterious to some people, and we're trying to change that.
Yeah. Well, we're glad to be a part of that.
Thank you very much.
I have an opening question that I think we've been asked a lot, had this discussion quite often in the past. How do you, and I know you talk about the differences between just emotional giving and very strategic giving. First of all, would you kind of set the tone for what you mean by those things? And then I have a follow-up question.
Sure. I'd say you could make the argument that all giving is emotional giving, right? Let me just start with that. But I do try to start with people and say, what are your values? What are the things that you care about? And there are exercises we can play with people to get there. What are the issues that you care about? What are the things we just talked about? A few: food scarcity and so on. And then you start to walk people toward, all right, well, how do you feel about money? And how does your family felt about this? How did you come into money? Did you inherit it? Did you earn it? How did that happen? And how do you incorporate your family into this? So we talk about that. So that's kind of on the strategic side, but it's also the emotional side. And then you start to move into the tactical side. I'd say now we start to get into what assets do you have? What assets do you want to consider donating, and why? Is it income? Is it assets? What are you thinking about? And then what charitable giving vehicles would you consider? Do you want to think about a charitable gift annuity, a charitable lead trust? Do you want to think about a donor advised fund, right? Really starting to get pretty deep and technical. And then ultimately, which nonprofits would you like to make a difference with? How do you want to make an impact? What assets do you want to deploy, and how much and when, and so on? And what would impact look like? So it's almost, you can see I follow this very kind of strict outline to get there, because I want to make sure we spend enough time on the emotional side, enough time for people to flesh that out. Because if we rush through that too quickly, I think people tend to be like, well, I know what I'm doing tactically and I'm making these decisions and that's it. But maybe I don't even know why I'm doing it. And maybe if I don't spend a little time there, I will lose my way. I'll feel like I need to distribute money to all nonprofits that come my way. I feel guilty if I don't help everybody. And the reality is you can't help everybody, and you shouldn't feel guilty. You should know where you want to focus and why, and maybe I can help you get there.
One of the most brilliant things I saw years ago, I was in the radio business. We talked a little bit about that before we started. But one of the things that I thought was so impressive is there was a large car dealership in the Ohio area. And they had declared that these are the two causes that we donate to. And everything, that kept away a lot of people that are just kind of taking up time and begging for money all the time from a business, right? And I know that doesn't sound very nice at the moment, but it happens to very successful business people, right? They get hit up a lot for charity. And if you connect back to the emotional things, that things that mean a lot to you, and you say, well, these two things mean a lot to me, so we're only going to give to these two things. Of course, they can change their mind at any point. But I felt like that was a really brilliant way of doing that, meeting their emotional needs as well as strategic, and keeping everybody else kind of at bay, and staying true to what they really believed in. And I just thought I would say that out front. But the next question is, let's say we are in connection with the emotional reason, right? We know emotionally why we want to donate. What are some of the things we need to look for to make sure that our money is going to a place of accountability, of trust, et cetera? Because I think that is foremost in people's minds when they think about giving to a charity.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. It's probably one of the more common questions is people say, how would I know if a charity is a good charity to consider? So we'll start with some things that people know that are out there right now. Candid has something called GuideStar, which is essentially various criteria that people use to check on whether or not something is considered high quality. There's also Charity Navigator, has also a form that people can fill out to say, you know, this is a good charity. There's something called the Better Business Bureau's Wise Giving Alliance, I think is what it's called. And that also has a template. And then GiveTrust, which you mentioned in the introduction, GiveTrust is something I've been working on, which is to try to say, could we get something that's even more comprehensive than those? So these are 3 good templates, but what would it look like if you really flesh something out so that you had all these different criteria, qualitative and quantitative data that was really substantive, that was completed by the nonprofit, but maybe also filled out by things that are already on the internet, so that when a donor is going to look at something, they look at it and go, wow, there's a lot of great criteria here. I mean, it's really comprehensive. But what do I care about? I care about this. I care about the impact they're making with the constituency. What is the testimonial from the beneficiary of the work? Or I really care about leadership. I want to know more about the CEO or the executive director and what they bring to the table. Or I want to know about their evidence-based approach and so on. That's pretty deep stuff. And most people don't have that at their fingertips. So they rely on people in my industry to go out and do a little bit of that work and find these types of things. And I've even interviewed people who are my peer group. And I say, well, how do you go and vet nonprofits? And they all have a slightly different approach on how they go and vet the nonprofits. So I'm looking to standardize it. I'm looking to create something that's very comprehensive, very data driven, and very at the end of the day, it's customized. So if you're going on and you're saying, okay, I'm interested in these things, and I have a dashboard, and when I go onto the dashboard and I enter these particular areas that I'm interested in, these issue areas or anything, it pops up and it's very customized to you. That's what I'm going for.
Like what you're hearing? Hit that subscribe button and learn how you can change how you're seen and charge what you're worth.
And so your goal is for GiveTrust to become that, like
Yes.
that is the crux of what we want that to become over time.
That's
I
exactly
think
right. Yeah.
that's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was a lot of it was prompted by this. Grant writers that I knew who were working for nonprofits and trying to go find the money, the grant writers would say, I don't think we're asking the right questions. She said, I don't think the grant makers are asking the right questions. What if we devised more of a common application or more of something that's more to this universal application? So we lead the grant funders, the people who are making the grants, lead them to maybe some of the criteria that most people would be most interested in, rather than saying, okay, we're giving the money away, we're going to create the rules, we're going to create the questions. And maybe they're not really great questions, honestly. I mean, they're trying to create some barriers and they're trying to create some guardrails around giving the money away, which I get. But if you're asking the wrong questions of the nonprofit, and the nonprofit's having to jump through these hoops and answer these questions, and you just don't feel like you're meeting each other, you're actually connecting, then there's something wrong with that. It should feel a little bit more, these are the right questions to ask a nonprofit. The nonprofit then is obligated to answer those questions, both qualitative and quantitative. And now we have a really good picture on what's happening. And if we can do that across thousands and thousands, if not millions of nonprofits, what could be better than that, right? That full transparency and clarity, so that way people feel really good about how they're giving and why.
Yeah. And is that also what GiveTrust does? Do you also do you offer those services of like grant writing for nonprofits too? Are you specifically working with the philanthropic individuals or corporations that want to give? Do you do both?
Well, yeah. So GiveTrust has 2 parts, and I'd say we're in phase 1 right now. Phase 1 is to I'd say we're in 3 phases, but the first phase is we're trying to get the nonprofits to fill out these profiles as comprehensively as possible. So they need to step up and be clear about what they're asking for, what they need, or what their impact is. Then phase 2 would be get donors to come in and fill out their own profiles and say, we are interested in these things. And the donors could be individuals, they could be corporations, they could be foundations. This is what we're looking for. And then ultimately we match make them together in an electronic platform. So I'd say right now GiveTrust is squarely in phase 1, where we are trying to get as many nonprofits as possible to fill out the GiveTrust profile, the common application profile, and we coach them up. To your point about what do we do? We're giving them materials they can watch videos. We are doing, we're just about to launch some live interactive chat rooms and also webinars. And then we also have a team right now of about 55 people who are, we call them the GiveTrust advisors. And they are people who are specialists in grant writing. They're specialists in graphic design, maybe AI, specialists in all kinds of different things. And so therefore, when the nonprofit needs to fundraise, we can bring all these practitioners to the table and say, and back to your point earlier about how do we find these people? Well, we've found them for you. We know that you need them. They are very good at what they do. We can bring the right people together at the right time, give you what you need. And so what we're doing right now is talking about some of it will be free, some of it will be on a subscription service, and some of it will be a direct contract with the advisors themselves. So you can see that's full-blown training mode for the nonprofits to get exactly what they need. And that comes from a place of, we wouldn't want to put you on the GiveTrust platform if you really aren't ready for prime time. We don't want you to sort of fall on your face and say, gee, why are we not getting very many donations? Well, because you're not ready. You haven't answered the questions that would make you more credible and some an institution that people would really consider. Right now, you want the money. I mean, every nonprofit probably wants a little bit of money.
For
but
sure.
Are you actually stepping up and saying, here's why we deserve it. Here's why we're substantiating our impact and where we're going and what we're trying to be and so on. If that's not clear, it's just not going to be that attractive to donors, period. End of story.
So true. Because unfortunately, and we've got a little bit of a back experience with this ourselves, because I started a not-for-profit years ago based around the honey business, the honeybee business. And you know, for a myriad of different reasons, obviously, but the whole idea of it was, you know, using this miraculous honey, saving the bees, you know, using it for human education, clothing, feeding. So everybody tends to win, right, from this God-given thing. But people don't realize on that side of it, it's one thing to get a designation of not-for-profit or nonprofit or whatever. It's another thing to run one it is. And I think a lot of people get lost in the dream versus the reality of that. And the heartfelt commitment to try to do something great can get mired quickly into the reality of the world and business and help and all that kind of thing. So
that's right.
I think
that's right. At the end of the day, it is a business. Yeah. And they do have to run it fiscally responsibly. And sometimes they should be a 501c3 and sometimes they should not be a 501c3. Maybe they can get a fiscal sponsor to do the processing work for them because they're not quite ready for that. But I mean, that's all in the education of where are you as an institution? What are you trying to accomplish? And you have a good heart and you have probably a really strong mission that won't by itself necessarily translate into here's success. Why you're going to be a successful nonprofit. Yeah.
Yeah. Makes total sense. And then from the donor side also, though, that's part of what GiveTrust will want to do too, I assume, is finding that, because I mean, we do live in a world where there's a lot of disposable income. I mean, people don't realize just how much disposable income corporations and certain individuals have in the United States. And we haven't even fulfilled a full transference of wealth, right, from the baby boomers down to other people. So there's still a lot of opportunity for good to be done, I would think.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot to what you just said. There's people who are, I mean, just again, the facts or the statistics were, I think in 2022, it was $499 billion donated. Then the year after that, it was $557 billion. And then the year after that, it's $592 billion. So that's more and more money that's going out for charitable purposes, never mind whatever else they're spending their money on as far as discretionary or disposable income. But also the great wealth transfer is being discussed these days. I've heard figures anywhere from 84 trillion to $120 trillion that is being transferred from one generation to the next. So the silent generation or the baby boomers are leaving this money, and these calculations are saying about 10% at least should be or could be coming to charity. So
Right.
that's a pretty significant amount of money. So at the end of the day, though, it's really just about understanding, what do families want? What are they thinking about? It's either going to go to heirs, it's going to go to taxes, or it's going to go to charity. And so it'd be nice to be able to talk to those three parts and say, as a family, where do you want to put your money? What's important to you? How much should go to your family? What's the right amount? Not too much, not too little. And then how much do you want to give to charity, and why? And why are you thinking of it? What are you thinking about as it relates to impact? So all these things, I think, are discussed. And then back to what we were talking about earlier, the approach with families, just sitting down and saying, what do you care about? What are the values that you want to make sure outlast you? And what do you want to make sure your kids and your grandkids and your great grandkids are remembering about you and your family? We can have those discussions now, so you can find what that central narrative is, instead of going, gee, grandma and grandpa, I didn't really know them, and I didn't really understand why they gave in the way they did. And I don't know how much money I should be giving to charity, and I don't know how much money we should be living on. Like those are questions that you can start to answer as a family, especially while people are alive, and can have those discussions.
And have those discussions. It's a very big to us right now. I'm in the real estate business, and that's a very big issue right now in every family, is probate and being prepared and things like this, and having a good plan for charitable giving, I would think, would be super important to that, right? Estate planning should have that section in it. Wouldn't you agree? Because there's tax strategies that can be taken advantage of. And then now you've got a less burden of tax going to, an unknown government spending arm. And it can actually go towards something that you want to, like you said, outlive you.
You can make those decisions. That's the best part about it. That's what estate planning is all about. That's what planning is all about. You get to make those choices until somebody decides they're going to make those choices for you, because you didn't. Right. And as far as taxes go, there's income taxes, estate taxes, a lot of things that people can be doing to minimize taxes and maximize impact. Absolutely. And when you talk about real estate, that's a whole other thing. I talk a lot about non-cash asset donations. A lot of nonprofits are soliciting for cash donations, which is one of the smallest of asset classes that people have. And yet they're constantly being solicited for cash donations. And I say, try real estate. I was at a conference last week where two gentlemen who help process real estate gifts on behalf of nonprofits, their company's called Realty Gift Fund. They said their average real estate donation right now is $1.7 million average across the United States. That's a whole huge game changer. A lot of people who are in the real estate business don't know that they can necessarily donate real estate. So they sell it and they incur capital gains taxes, and then they take the net proceeds and they donate that to charity. And it's like, you could have avoided all those capital gains taxes by donating all that real estate, in kind. So it's just, and that's just one thing. There's stock, there's bonds, there's mutual funds, there's life insurance, there's cryptocurrency, there's tangible personal property, there's all kinds of other assets that people have. And so that goes back to the planning piece. Like, what are you going to do with this asset? Are you going to keep it? Are you going to sell it? Are you going to donate it? What are we doing with it? Let's have a conversation about that now. And a lot of people just don't even thinking about those types of things. And therefore, they just sit there, or they're processed poorly, or they're not applied to where they could be applied. So I'm very passionate about making sure people look at the non-cash assets that they have and make a very intentional and deliberate decision on what to do with them.
Excellent. That's so good.
And I'm going to interject something in here, Rick, that obviously we do personal branding, and that is all we do. And so one of the things that I find very interesting is that people can be willing to give so much more to an organization where they trust the leader.
Yes.
Where they understand what that leader stands for. And it's really very important in how much, charitable giving an organization receives. That leadership is so important. But we're going to roll right into, Rick, our takeaways for today. And we probably have more, but we've narrowed it down to 3 here. So I'll kick it off with, a mission doesn't always translate into success, at least not without a plan. Right?
That's right. Yes, absolutely right. Absolutely right. There's a lot more to it. Yep.
Yeah, and we're fascinating. What was it? $592 billion donated in charity last year.
That's right.
That's
Yes.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And this is eye-opening. Your money, when you are gone, will either go to heirs, to taxes, or to charity, and you get to decide.
That's right.
So Rick, one last question for you is, how can the audience learn more about what you do and potentially working with you?
I appreciate that. My website is philanthropyguy.com, and you can learn all about me there, my bio, the way I approach working with nonprofits, donors, and working with professional advisors. And then there's also, I have a podcast of my own called Money to Give that goes out weekly, and we're trying to talk to anybody who's in the industry of philanthropy and helping to either donate money or receive money. So Money to Give is out there on Apple and Amazon and Spotify. So yeah. Thank you.
Well, first off, I'm really happy to have met you and happy with the work that you're doing. And I would be remiss if I didn't say, in the Jewish calendar, we're in that time frame right now in Bikurim, right? First fruits, and it's a good opportunity. It's a brand new year coming up, and people need that tax strategy. You need a plan strategy, and Rick sounds like the guy you would want to talk to find even where to start and making those plans. So we encourage everybody to reach out to him and check him out.
Philanthropyguy.com. And Rick, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Ready to change how you're seen and charge what you're worth? If you're not getting enough opportunities to meet with ideal customers, or the prospects you're meeting with just aren't ideal, it's most likely your brand that's holding you back. So if you're a coach, consultant, or expert who is on the rise, you need our ultimate guide to a freedom-based brand. Download it free now at BrandFaceGuide.com.